I always believed in the idea that there are two kinds of women in the world. There are those who, when they betray you, deserve the consequences because loyalty is everything. And then there are the ones who stand by you, the good ones. She's the kind of woman you build your life around, right? I mean, when we got married, I had no doubts. I trusted her. It was the one thing I knew for sure. She would never cheat on me. I mean, why would she? We had everything a couple could want. Sure, I don't have the money or status some guys do, but that never seemed to matter. We had love, and that was enough, wasn't it? But there's always that nagging fear deep down, that little voice that asks, what if? What if she's not who I think she is? So yeah, I wanted the dream, happiness, forever, with a woman who would always stand by me. It was just another regular day. I was heading out to run some errands when my neighbor Jim stopped me. We don't talk much, but when he called me over, I could tell something was off. He had this strange look on his face, almost like he didn't want to say what he was about to say. He started with, "Mike, I don't know how to tell you this, but you need to know." My stomach dropped immediately. You know that feeling? Like you suddenly know something's wrong, before you even hear the words. That's what hit me. But I just stood there, nodding, waiting for him to continue, even though every part of me didn't want to hear it. Then Jim says it. He tells me he saw Lisa. He saw her with someone else. And not just anyone. My best friend. At first, I didn't believe him. How could I? This is Lisa we're talking about. My Lisa. And my best friend. I mean, what are the chances, right? It didn't make sense. I tried to laugh it off. I asked him if he was sure. Maybe he saw something else. Maybe it wasn't what he thought. But Jim, he looked me straight in the eyes, and I could tell he wasn't joking. He even told me the exact time and place. That's when my heart sank, because it all lined up. I stood there, frozen. I didn't know what to say, what to think. It felt like the ground was pulled out from under me. You always hear stories about this happening to other people, but never to you. Never with someone like Lisa. But here I was, standing on my front lawn, hearing from my neighbor that the woman I loved, trusted, was cheating on me, and with my best friend, no less. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or punch something. All I knew was, my world just came crashing down. After Jim told me, I just stood there. My mind went blank. And then suddenly, it was flooded with 1,000 questions. Could this really be happening? Was it true? I mean, this is Lisa. The woman I thought I knew better than anyone. The woman I trusted more than myself. But the more I thought about it, the more it started to eat at me. What if Jim was right? What if I missed the signs? I replayed everything in my head. Every time Lisa said she was working late, every moment she seemed distant. Was I being naive? Was I fooling myself all along? I started to doubt everything. Not just her, but me. How could I have not seen this? Am I that blind? What kind of husband doesn't even know what's going on in his own marriage? Was I not paying attention? Or maybe this is all some sort of misunderstanding. Maybe Jim is wrong. He has to be wrong, right? I wanted to believe that. I wanted to hold on to the idea that Lisa was still the woman I thought she was. But no matter how much I tried to convince myself, that little voice inside me kept saying, "What if?" And that's when the doubt really hit. Not just about her, but about me. Was I not enough? Not successful enough? Not good-looking enough? I started picking myself apart, trying to figure out what I did wrong, what I didn't give her that made her turn to someone else, to him, of all people. My head was spinning. I couldn't figure out what was real anymore. I didn't know what to believe. All I knew was the life I thought I had was slipping through my fingers, and I wasn't sure if I could hold on to it. Приятный Ильдар. 15 сентября 2024 года 13 часа 58 минут. At some point, you can't avoid the truth anymore. I tried to brush it off, tried to tell myself Jim was wrong, or maybe it was a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew. I didn't want to know, but I knew. Reality hit like a freight train. The woman I loved, trusted, built my life with. She was unfaithful, and not just with anyone, but with someone I called my best friend. The more I thought about it, the more it made me sick to my stomach. How could they do this to me? I was angry, furious, but underneath it all, I felt something worse. Shame. I kept asking myself, how did I let this happen? I'm supposed to be the man of the house, the one who keeps everything together. But here I was, completely blindsided, like a fool. I started blaming myself for not being good enough. Was it because I didn't make enough money? Was I not successful enough? Did I not give Lisa the life she wanted? And then there was the failure part. I thought I'd succeeded in the one area that mattered most, finding a loyal, loving woman. That's what I always wanted, and I thought I had it. But now, that dream was shattered, and all I could see were the pieces. I was a failure as a husband, a failure as a man. The truth is, when you're hit with something like this, it's not just the betrayal that hurts. It's the realization that everything you believed in, everything you thought you knew, is gone. And what's left? Pain. Pure, raw pain. You tell yourself you'll never be the guy who gets cheated on. You'll never be the guy who doesn't see it coming. But then, you wake up one day, and that's exactly who you are. And the worst part, you have no idea what to do next. I don't even know how I walked into the house that day. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding, and my mind was racing with 1,000 thoughts. But one thing was clear. I had to confront Lisa. I couldn't live in the shadow of suspicion any longer. I needed to hear it from her. When I saw her, sitting there like nothing had changed, I almost lost it. My stomach churned, and I could feel the anger boiling inside me. How could she sit there, so calm, so normal, while everything was falling apart? I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her and demand the truth, but all I managed was, "We need to talk." She looked up at me, confused. Or maybe she was pretending to be. I couldn't tell anymore. I couldn't read her like I used to. I asked her straight up, "Are you cheating on me?" The words felt like knives coming out of my mouth, sharp and cutting. And for a second, just a second, I thought she was going to deny it, tell me I was crazy, that Jim was wrong. I was ready for that fight. I almost wanted her to lie so I could catch her in it. But then, her face changed. Her eyes dropped. And that's when I knew. That's when everything inside me shattered. She didn't even need to say it. I saw it in her expression. I saw the guilt, the shame, but also I saw something else, something I didn't expect. I saw relief. Relief. Like she was glad it was finally out. Like she had been carrying this secret around, and now she didn't have to hide it anymore. That's what killed me. Not just the betrayal, but the fact that she had been walking around, lying to my face, sharing our bed, while all along she knew this day would come. "It's true," she whispered. I could barely hear her, but those two words hit me like a punch in the gut. I felt like I was drowning. My heart was racing, but at the same time, everything slowed down. I heard my own voice shaking, asking, "How long?" She hesitated for a second, and that was another knife. Every pause, every look away, was a new wound. She said, "It's been a few months." A few months? How many lies does that add up to? How many times did she look me in the eyes and pretend everything was fine? I felt rage bubbling up. I could barely control myself. With him? With my best friend? I spat the words out, practically choking on them. And that's when I saw the tears in her eyes. But I didn't care. Not now. It was too late for tears. She nodded, and I lost it. I slammed my fist on the table, making her jump. "How could you do this to me?" I shouted. "To us?" My voice cracked. I wasn't just angry. I was devastated. She tried to apologize, started saying something about it being a mistake, about not meaning to hurt me, but I couldn't listen. It was all just noise. Nothing she could say could undo what she had done. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare, one where every word from her mouth was another stab in the back. And the worst part? I didn't even know what to do next. Part of me wanted to throw her out of the house, scream at her, make her feel the pain she caused me. But another part of me just wanted to curl up and cry. Because no matter what, she was still Lisa, the woman I loved, the woman I trusted, and I didn't know how to let go of that. After Lisa admitted everything, I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. The silence that followed was deafening. It was like a bomb had gone off inside me, and all I could feel was the debris of my life scattered everywhere. I couldn't think straight. My heart was racing, but I was paralyzed. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. All I could do was stand there, staring at her. This woman I loved. This woman I didn't even recognize anymore. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever thought possible. It wasn't just the affair. It was the lies, the deception, the months of pretending everything was okay while she was sneaking around with my best friend. My best friend. The person I trusted with everything. I thought I was strong, but in that moment, I felt broken, completely shattered. I kept asking myself, how could this happen? How could I let this happen? I was supposed to protect our marriage, our love. I was supposed to be enough for her, but clearly, I wasn't. I started to spiral, blaming myself for everything. I wasn't good enough, not successful enough, not man enough to keep her happy. And now, here I was, standing in the ruins of what I thought was a happy life. But the worst part? It wasn't just anger I felt. It was grief, pure, soul-crushing grief. I was mourning the life we had, the future we planned. All those moments we shared, the memories we built together, now felt tainted, corrupted. Every laugh, every kiss, every promise we made, they were all lies. How do you come back from that? How do you piece yourself together when the person who promised to never hurt you has torn you apart? I spent nights awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering where it all went wrong. I replayed every conversation, every look, every smile she gave me, trying to figure out when she stopped loving me. When did I lose her? I'd get these flashes, these moments of pure rage, where I wanted to call her, scream at her, make her feel the pain she caused me. But then, in the next breath, I'd feel empty, hollow, like all the anger in the world couldn't fill the void she left behind. And then, there were the nightmares. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see them together. Him, my best friend, with her. The images wouldn't stop. It was like my mind was torturing me, showing me things I never wanted to see. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding, and for a split second, I'd forget. I'd think everything was normal, that none of this had happened. And then it would hit me all over again. The crushing weight of reality. I didn't know how to function anymore. I didn't know how to live with the constant ache in my chest. The days blurred together. I felt lost, completely untethered. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and every time I looked at the life we built together, all I saw was the wreckage. There's a kind of heartbreak that doesn't just hurt, it breaks you. It breaks who you are, what you believe in, and what you thought your life would be. And that's where I was, stuck in this never-ending loop of pain, betrayal, and heartbreak. I wanted to move on, to let go. But how do you let go of someone who was supposed to be your forever? I never thought I'd find myself at this crossroads. The decision to stay or to walk away. How did my life come to this? Just days ago, I thought I had everything figured out. Lisa and I, we had plans. We had a future. Now, I was standing in the wreckage of what used to be my life, forced to make the hardest decision I've ever faced. On one hand, my heart kept whispering to me, maybe you can fix this, Michael. Maybe she made a mistake. Maybe, just maybe, she's still the woman you fell in love with. But was she? Was that even possible? Could I forgive her? Could I look at her without seeing him, without feeling the sting of betrayal every single time? The idea of staying felt like holding on to something broken, something that could never be whole again. But then there was the other side, the darker side, walking away, leaving everything behind. It felt like ripping my own heart out, like tearing away the life I'd spent years building. I knew if I left, it wouldn't just be Lisa I was leaving. It would be the life we shared, the memories, the love. And maybe that's what scared me the most. The idea of being alone, of starting over. Was I strong enough to do that? Could I survive that kind of loss? Every part of me was at war. One minute, I'd tell myself I had to stay, that we could work through this. Maybe couples therapy, maybe a fresh start. I'd picture us sitting down, talking through the pain, rebuilding trust, if that's even possible. But then, in the next moment, I'd be filled with rage, and all I could see was her with him. Every kiss, every touch, they haunted me. And I knew deep down, I'd never forget that. Never. I'd always carry it with me, like a scar that would never heal. And the questions, they wouldn't stop. Do you leave the woman you've loved for years over one mistake, or do you fight for her, for your marriage, for everything you've built together? But how do you fight when your trust is shattered? How do you rebuild when the foundation is gone? The thought of leaving ripped me apart. The idea of not seeing her every day, not waking up next to her, not being a part of her life anymore. It felt like death. But at the same time, staying felt like slow torture. How could I live with her, knowing what she did, knowing she betrayed me with my best friend? Every moment with her would be a reminder of that, a reminder that I wasn't enough, that I had failed. Could I live with that? Could I live in a marriage where every touch felt tainted, where every glance carried the weight of betrayal? I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with the possibilities. If I left, would I regret it? Would I miss her every day for the rest of my life? Would I be haunted by the what-ifs? But if I stayed, would I lose myself? Would I become a shell of who I used to be, trapped in a marriage that would never feel whole again? I didn't know what to do. I was trapped, torn between love and betrayal, between hope and despair. Every choice felt like a loss. Every path felt like it led to more pain. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. I had to choose. And either way, I knew I'd never be the same. After days of wandering through the ruins of my shattered life, I realized I couldn't bear this burden alone any longer. The weight of betrayal was crushing me, suffocating every breath I took. The walls of our home, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison closing in, each corner echoing with memories tainted by deceit. I reached for my phone countless times, my fingers hovering over contacts, family, old friends, anyone who might understand. But shame held me back. How do you tell people that your wife cheated on you with your best friend? That the life you proudly displayed was nothing more than a facade? One sleepless night, as the darkness pressed in, I finally broke. I called my younger sister, Sarah. She answered on the third ring, her voice groggy with sleep. "Mike, do you have any idea what time it is?" The moment I tried to speak, a sob caught in my throat. Concern replaced the irritation in her voice. "Mike, what's wrong?" "It's Lisa. She cheated on me," I managed to choke out. Silence. Then, "I'm coming over." Within the hour, she was at my doorstep, wrapping me in a hug that loosened the tightness in my chest just enough for me to breathe. We sat on the couch, and the whole story spilled out of me, every painful detail, every raw emotion. She listened, tears glistening in her eyes, anger flashing across her face when I mentioned my so-called best friend. "I can't believe they did this to you," she said, her voice shaking. "You don't deserve this." "I don't know what to do, Sarah. I feel lost, broken." She took my hand firmly. "You don't have to decide anything right now, but you can't go through this alone. Let me help you." Emboldened by her support, I reached out to others. I called my old friend Jake from college, someone who knew me before Lisa was ever in the picture. His reaction was immediate outrage. "That's unforgivable, man. You tell me where he is and I'll—" "Jake, I don't need revenge. I don't even know what I need." He sighed heavily. "You need a fresh start. Come stay with me for a while. Get away from that house." I considered it. The thought of escaping the constant reminders of my failed marriage was tempting. But could I really run away from this pain? Would distance make any difference? In desperation, I even reached out to a support group I found online, a forum for people betrayed by those they trusted most. Reading their stories, I saw reflections of my own agony. I posted my story, and the responses poured in. Words of sympathy, advice, shared experiences. Strangers, yet connected by a common thread of heartbreak. One message stood out. "The pain feels unbearable now, but you will survive this. Lean on those who care about you. Let them carry you when you can't walk on your own." I realized then that seeking support wasn't a sign of weakness, but a step toward healing. So I let them in, all of them. My family, my friends, even the kind strangers online. Their voices became a chorus that drowned out the tormenting whispers of self-doubt and worthlessness that had plagued me. But even as I clung to their support, a storm raged inside me. One moment, I'd feel a glimmer of hope. The next, a surge of anger and betrayal would drag me back down. It was a relentless tug of war, and I was exhausted. One evening, my father called, a man of few words and stoic demeanor. "Your mother told me what's going on," he said gruffly. I braced myself for his disappointment. Instead, he said softly, "Son, this doesn't define you. People will fail you, even those you love. But you have the strength to overcome this." Tears welled up again. "I don't feel strong, Dad. I feel shattered." "Broken pieces can be reassembled," he replied. "Maybe not into what was before, but into something new, something resilient." His words resonated deep within me. Maybe I wasn't beyond repair. Maybe, with the support of those who truly cared, I could begin to piece myself back together. But as nights turned into weeks, the battle within me intensified. For every step forward, there were Mom. I don't know when it started, but one day, the fog began to lift. Just a little. It wasn't a sudden thing. Not some big moment of clarity where everything clicked into place. No, it was more like a slow shift. I'd wake up, and instead of feeling like the weight of the world was pressing down on me, I'd feel lighter. Not much, but enough to notice. It wasn't that the pain was gone. It wasn't even close. But I wasn't drowning in it anymore. I wasn't consumed by it, day and night. There were moments, small, fleeting moments, when I'd catch myself thinking about something other than the betrayal. Maybe it was a movie I used to love, or a hobby I'd let fall by the wayside. Things that reminded me of me, of who I was before all of this. It sounds simple, but those moments, they felt like a lifeline, a reminder that I hadn't disappeared, that I wasn't just this broken version of myself. I started to find comfort in little things, like taking a walk, going for a drive, or even just sitting in silence without feeling the constant gnawing in my chest. I leaned on my family and friends, but slowly, I realized that healing wasn't just about their support. It was about me, about choosing to pick myself up. I wasn't going to let this define me forever. I refused to let this betrayal be the thing that crushed me. I started focusing on what I could control, myself. I began working out again, hitting the gym not just to pass the time, but because it reminded me of my own strength. Every lift, every run, it was like I was reclaiming pieces of myself, bit by bit. I wasn't doing it for anyone else, not for Lisa, not for anyone watching. I was doing it for me. There were days, of course, when it all came crashing back down. Days when the memories were too strong, the pain too fresh. But even then, I started to realize that those days didn't last forever. The waves of grief and anger would hit, but they'd also pass. And when they did, I'd stand a little taller. I'd feel a little stronger. I remember one evening, weeks after everything had come to light, I was sitting outside, watching the sunset. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt peaceful. I wasn't thinking about Lisa, or him, or the betrayal. I was just there, in that moment, breathing in the air, feeling the warmth on my skin. That's when it hit me. I was going to be okay. It wasn't going to happen overnight. I wasn't going to magically wake up one day and feel completely healed, but I was going to make it through this. I was going to survive. And more than that, I was going to rebuild. Maybe not the life I had before, but something new, something stronger. The cracks were still there. The scars hadn't faded. But I wasn't broken anymore. I was healing. I didn't expect to meet anyone. Honestly, I wasn't even looking. After what happened with Lisa, the last thing on my mind was starting something new. I wasn't ready to open myself up again. I wasn't sure I ever would be. But life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. It was a random afternoon when I met Emily. She wasn't part of some grand plan. She wasn't a solution to the pain. She was real. She didn't know my history, didn't know the mess I was carrying around inside me. She just saw me, as I was, no questions asked. We met at a mutual friends gathering. One of those events I almost didn't go to because, let's face it, socializing was the last thing I wanted to do. But something pushed me to go, to show up, and that's when she walked into my life. At first, I was cautious. Hell, more than cautious, I was terrified. Terrified of letting someone in again. Terrified of trusting someone with the broken pieces of myself. How could I? After everything I'd been through, after what Lisa did, how could I ever trust anyone again? But Emily, She had this calmness about her, this warmth that made it hard to keep my guard up. It wasn't some whirlwind romance. It wasn't fireworks and instant love. It was slow, careful, and terrifying in its simplicity. She made me laugh when I hadn't laughed in months. She made me forget, just for a moment, the pain I was still carrying. But then, there were the moments when the fear crept back in. The nights when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with the same old doubts. What if she's like Lisa? What if she betrays you too? What if you're just setting yourself up for more pain? Every time she'd smile at me or reach out to hold my hand, I'd feel it, the pull of the past, the ghosts of what happened before. I'd stiffen, hesitate, caught between wanting to dive in and wanting to run as far away as possible. It wasn't fair to her, I knew that, but I couldn't help it. The scars were still fresh, the wounds still raw. There were moments when I thought about ending it, just walking away before I got too close, before she got too close. Because deep down, I didn't know if I could handle being hurt again. I wasn't sure if my heart could take another betrayal. But Emily, she was patient. She didn't push me, didn't rush me. She just let me be. She gave me the space to come to terms with everything. And for the first time, I felt like I could breathe around someone again. She didn't pry into my past, didn't ask for explanations. She just showed up, day by day, with kindness and understanding. Still, the doubts gnawed at me. Trust didn't come easy. Not anymore. Every smile, every promise, every touch, there was always that voice in the back of my mind whispering, "Be careful. Don't let your guard down. You've been here before." And there were times I almost sabotaged it, almost let the fear take over. But then I'd look at her and something in me would soften. Slowly, I began to realize that maybe, just maybe, not everyone was like Lisa. Maybe some people were capable of real loyalty, of real love. And maybe I didn't have to live in the shadow of my past forever. It wasn't easy. It was messy, complicated, but step by step, I found myself letting her in, trusting her, trusting myself again. And that was the scariest part of all, allowing myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could be happy again. I never thought I'd get here. After everything I went through with Lisa, after the betrayal, the heartbreak, I didn't think love was something I'd find again. Not real love. Not the kind of love that could fill the cracks and make me feel whole again. I thought the scars would always be too deep, that the walls I'd built around my heart were too high, too strong to ever let anyone back in. But here I am, somehow, against all odds, I found it again. No, it's not the same love I had before. It's different. And maybe that's what makes it even more special. Emily, she's nothing like Lisa. From the start, it was clear. She wasn't perfect, and neither was I. But we weren't trying to be. She wasn't this fantasy I had built up in my mind. She was real, honest, raw. And it's funny, because when I was with Lisa, I thought that's what love was supposed to be. This perfect, unbreakable thing. But now, I know love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up for each other, even when it's messy, even when it's hard. Emily didn't fix me. I didn't need fixing. I wasn't broken. I was healing. But she became a part of that healing, not by taking away the pain, but by showing me that I could feel again, that I could love again, that the world didn't end with Lisa's betrayal, even though at the time, it felt like it had. I remember the first time I realized I was truly happy with her. It wasn't some grand gesture or romantic moment. It was a quiet Sunday morning, and we were sitting on the couch, drinking coffee. I looked over at her, And for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't thinking about the past. I wasn't haunted by the pain, the lies, the betrayal. I was just there, in that moment, and I felt it. Happiness. Not the kind of happiness that comes from big dramatic moments, but the kind that comes from peace, from being content with where you are and who you're with. It was in that moment that I realized something. I had survived. I had made it through the darkest chapter of my life, and I was still standing, stronger than before, maybe even better than before, because now I wasn't clinging to a fantasy. I wasn't chasing some ideal of what love should be. I was living it day by day with Emily in all its imperfect, beautiful mess. But don't get me wrong. There are still scars. The past didn't magically disappear. There are moments when it creeps back in, when a memory flashes across my mind, and I feel that old sting. But the difference now is, I don't let it control me. I don't let it define me. Because I've learned that happiness isn't about erasing the pain. It's about carrying it with you and still choosing to move forward. Emily and I, we've built something real, something grounded in trust, in honesty. And trust me, that's not easy for me. Every now and then, I still have those moments of doubt, those flashes of fear. But I've learned to talk about them, to face them head on, instead of letting them fester like before. She's taught me that it's okay to be vulnerable, that it's okay to let someone in. Even after everything I've been through. Love, I've realized, isn't about never getting hurt. It's about finding someone who's willing to help you heal when you do. And that's what Emily is for me. She's not my savior. She's not my cure. She's my partner, my equal. And together, we're building something that's more solid, more real than anything I've ever known. I look back now, and I see the journey I've been on. The pain, the heartbreak, it was all real. It was all a part of me. But so is this. So is the love I've found again. And that's the thing about life. It breaks you down, it tests you, but it also gives you the chance to rebuild, to grow, to find something even more beautiful on the other side of the pain. So, here I am, standing at the other end of the storm, not just surviving, but living, loving. And for the first time, in a long time, I feel like I've found my way back to happiness. Not the happiness I thought I'd lost, but something new, something stronger.